Hello everyone, my name is Tanish Mathur. I'm a student of XLRI and we are here at the Vortex Conclave. We are more than delighted to have with us Mr. Param Puneet Singh. Mr. Singh is a seasoned strategy and transformation leader with over 17 years of global consulting experience across 12 plus countries. A managing director of the Accenture Strategy and Consulting, he leads the talent and organization consulting portfolio for Asia Pacific region within Accenture's global network and heads the change management practice in India, guiding a 350 plus member team. He has partnered with multiple Fortune 500 organizations to deliver large scale digital transformations, operating model designs, and global capability centers initiative. Working at the intersection of AI and human potential, he helps organizations adopt human aligned AI while reimagining the future of work and enterprise change in an increasingly digital world. It is an honor to have you here with us, sir. I hope you had a great time at the panel discussion as well.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure to be back in XLRI, interact with the students, the faculty. And yeah, it was a good panel discussion. I think the topic was very pertinent. It was good to hear the perspectives from the other panelists. We always go back learning something new.
Surely, sir. It was really interesting and insightful for us as well. So, before moving on to questions about AI and transformations, I was just curious that you have spent many years in consulting and change management. And did you always see yourself building a career in this space when you were starting out initially as a young guy?
Not at all. When we did our MBAs, we were not as self-aware as you people are today. So for me, consulting was something which I developed an interest during my MBA course. I like solving problems. I like bringing forward perspectives which can help us redefine how businesses work. And then I figured out probably I will do well in consulting. But change management is something which happened by default. I landed into a project when change management as a field was very new. And I realized that people are at the heart of any transformations. So it just caught my attention at that point of time that this is something which is gaining increased business prominence. That whenever you are transforming organization, whenever you are moving forward with any sort of a big event in any organization, you got to keep people at the center to make it really successful. So then one thing led to the other, and I ended up doing change management, workforce related work, and getting into this space.
Sorry, sir. And today, the space that you operate in, it is heavily influenced by AI and developing future workforce as well. And it is evolving almost like every month or every quarter. So it must be really challenging. So what really motivates you to keep up with the work that is going on?
Not every month, every day, every minute. So the speed at which AI is coming is incredible, and in a good way. I mean, if you look at it, there have been previous industry revolutions which have come in which organizations have got impacted, workforces have got transformed. But there's nothing like what's coming right now, right? Sure. AI, because you can't really catch up with the pace at which things are happening. And while there are challenges which are there with any new development that comes in, I think if you really think about it, it's about all of us heading towards a human plus AI kind of a collaboration with the humans in the lead. Sure. So till the time I think we are clear about what is the objective we are trying to hit, what are the values we are trying to derive from AI. In any case, we got to figure out how you need to re-transform yourself. And I'm using the word re-transform intentionally because transformation is also something happening very quickly to be ready for the future. And unless and until we treat AI as an enabler to do that, you cannot really survive today. So it's challenging, but it's also an exciting times because we are getting a lot more possibilities around how we help our clients, how we do our own work with AI, which were never there earlier.
That's really interesting and surely sounds exciting. Now you work right at the intersection of AI, as you mentioned, where people are at the core. And what's the most prominent misconception that leaders today have about AI transformation? And as you mentioned that people are at the core, but still there might be some misconception that leader might be having.
There are many. There are many. When you talk about leaders, AI, application of AI, misconceptions range from getting scared about how AI is going to take the jobs to really thinking AI as something which is going to give them a solution at hand, or taking AI as something which is really going to be very difficult to manage, and all those kind of things. But I think more than the misconception, what is important for us to realize is that AI is your friend. And AI is something which you all have to adopt, whether it's a leader, whether it's a junior employee. It's something which has to be done at the right level within the organization. And unless and until leaders show visibly that they are adopting to AI in the right manner, it will not follow. So if I have to still pick up one, I think many of the leaders still believe that they don't really need to learn AI. It's their team members who can. But actually, it starts from the leaders. The more they start using AI for all their strategic activities, they also start realizing the value of how it can help the organization and also end up serving as the right example for the rest of the company to follow.
They surely need to lead from the front, I see. In that
Always,
case.
always. And this is a kind of a wave in which there is a possibility to elevate the whole work for every level, not just for the junior levels.
I think my question, this question stems because there are huge investment and there are even bigger strategies that are backing these AI transformations. But even then, these transformations do struggle quite a lot and are not succeeding. So, from your experience, what do you think would be the reason that significant transformations fail at the people layer, even when the strategy is looking quite solid? But at the people layer, it struggles.
So transformations are complex. Transformations are fast today than they were used to be. They are also becoming more and more a competitive necessity for some companies. So if you go back maybe a decade ago, companies are undergoing one transformation in 3 years, 4 years. If you look at it today, any major company which is progressing in nature is actually doing 2 to 3 transformations every year. So that's the pace at which things have evolved. That's the pace at which industry is moving. Having said that, it comes with its own set of complexities. So while you may be embarking upon a transformation, there are a lot of factors that need to be looked into holistically. What's going to be the future employee experience? How am I going to figure out what's going to be the impact on the people? If it's the same employee undergoing 3 transformations, how do they intersect with each other? But more importantly, the biggest thing that we need to think about is a life cycle of a transformation means that you have to first tie it back to the business value, the business KPIs. So it has to be very tightly knitted to the business strategy of the organization. And then KPIs have to flow in not just with respect to generating, say, efficiencies or cost or whatever are the objective of those transformations, but also with respect to people's behaviors and mindsets. You've got to understand that in the future state, what are the skills, what are the behaviors, what are the mindsets that people need to really execute in order to make the transformation successful, and who actually owns the transformation. Is it only the team implementing it, or it's the business groups which really then need to embed it into the regular DNA of the way they operate? And that is why you see a lot of transformations not being successful, either because of people issues. If I give a statistics, about 70% fail because of people issues, or due to lack of a stronger linkage with the value case, or because of the fact that there's too much going on in the organizations. So employees don't really know what to prioritize, when to prioritize.
70% surely sounds a huge number.
That's huge.
And I just want to extend that thought that I proposed in this question, that many organizations experiment quite a lot with AI. They have run pilots and they have even shown early and promising wins. But even after that, they are not able to implement it on a large enterprise scale level. So why do organizations struggle to cross that gap from AI experimentation to, I would say, enterprise reinvention?
So the AI wave is still at an early stage right now. So what's happening is that if you look at any life cycle of a new technology, you'll see that there's a hype, then there's stabilization, and then there's like a plateau which comes in which you start realizing those values. So what has happened in the last few years, companies have started experimenting with the possibility of getting onto the AI wave. And a lot of the companies have really been working on, okay, this is figuring out, okay, this is the use case, I need to get onto it. But now is where the pivot is shifting to what value AI is going to bring. Now, there can be multiple perspectives to it. In some cases, it might be that the short-term value that was expected was actually lesser than what it came out. Or in some cases, it was like you went into the bandwagon just because your competitor was going in. Or in some cases, it's more about being driven by some sort of an agenda that we have to become AI-driven. But now companies, where they are headed is they're realizing that AI has to be at the forefront of their business strategy. And they need to really define their processes, really define their operating models in a way that AI is a horizontal layer across all the functions within the organization. It's no longer a competitive necessity. It's no longer a differentiator. It's basically the way you do things, in which if you use it strategically enough, then it becomes a competency, or then it becomes a differentiator. So that linkage with business value that focus on getting it adopted within the whole organization in the right way, and then the whole aspect which comes around measuring it properly, whether it's been done or whether the linkage has been strong or not. These are few things which evolve as companies start experimenting more or start getting AI more deeply into their business realities.
Understandable. So, as you told that the gap between the experimentation and the actual implementation is also because that it is in the initial phases right now, the technology, and everyone is trying. But I just wanted to ask further from there that do you think global capability centers could help fill in that gap between experimentation to actual enterprise level?
Absolutely. So the rise of global capability centers over the last few years has been phenomenal. And if you go back to 1980s when the first GCC was set up in India,
Yeah.
it started off being a cost efficiency
Yeah.
enabler and all that. That's something unthinkable of today, the way GCCs are operating, that, oh, did we really start like that? Because it's really being seen as a value partners or innovation engines, and those kind of things have become very real. Like there are companies like Procter and Gamble who are like really doing the whole product design in GCCs. There are
Yeah.
companies like Microsoft who are publishing their annual reports through GCCs. And there are like countless examples like this in which the end-to-end value chain of a business is really residing within the GCCs, in which they are not just seen as a back-end operator, or they're not just seen as a group of employees sitting in a different location, to something in which they are basically seen as an integral part of the business fabric for the organization. So definitely, if used strategically enough, GCCs can be those incubation partners for the parent companies to really not just scale up AI, but also experiment and figure out the new possibilities that AI can bring to elevate their business. So, complete yes.
Surely. So, like going even further, that AI is now shifting how decisions are made inside organizations. And even when we read about different blogs and reports that Accenture is doing, they are trying to place autonomous AI at the very center across different capabilities. So, how should organizations redesign their operating models when AI begins to take over decision making? Of course, not on the strategy level, but even on a day-to-day basis.
So what the shift that has happened is information used to be the key thing for decision making earlier, or the
Sure.
key element which used to dictate how you make decisions. That has shifted to intelligence now. So AI is available to everyone. Intelligence is being democratized. Information is being democratized. It's about how you make business sense of that is what makes a difference. Now, when we talk about autonomous agents or when we talk about generative AI being followed within the processes, what's important to understand is that while they'll be taking a lot of load on them of, say, repeatable activities or data heavy activities and all that, there'll always be the human in the lead,
Sure.
which is how it should happen. But the core responsibility of that human would be probably, in a very simplistic term, say you're managing a group of people today. Tomorrow you'll be managing a group of agents plus people. So
Sure.
it's more an orchestrator that becomes, in which you have certain processes which are being executed by agents, and then there's an orchestrator agent, which is really like combining all of it, and then there's a human in the lead, which is basically then doing the quality check or putting the strategic guardrails in place or really defining what to do. So this is where activities which can really be impacted by AI, and there are criteria through which we define them, can make a difference in the future AI setup. Things are evolving, but at the same time, it's not that they are going to completely take over the
Sure.
processes or completely execute it, because even to implement AI properly, there are a lot of considerations. There are like different layers of the AI architecture. There's the data which has to really be uh, figured out very, very cleanly if you have to get the AI to work the
Yeah.
way you want. There has to be adoption, there has to be skilling. So there are a lot more factors playing on the ground over there to make that possible. Having said that, that's where the future is definitely headed. So if played smartly with the right set of focus on the key areas, it has the potential to really change the game for most organizations.
I think when you talked about people working with orchestrator, so you're maybe talking about the three layers like utility and super agent and orchestrator. That makes sense. And but even though there are some layers that which will automate some of the workflows surely, and there are some companies out there who are trying to maybe replace those jobs instead of integrating AI to redesign that entire workflow. And I think in one of the marketing capabilities Accenture has done quite well in implementing this, that they redesign their entire workflow, integrating autonomous AI and not just replacing people's job. So, what are your views on that? Is that how we should
See,
produce further as
it's
well?
never looked at in any AI implementation, and here I'm speaking more from personal capacity, but
Sorry.
any AI implementation never starts off by thinking that, hey, I'm going to get rid of people or
Yeah.
replace people. I think the way to look at AI is how do I improve the current state to become better at where it will be tomorrow. Now, what's the definition of better? That may vary from being more
Organization.
financially effective to becoming more cost effective to becoming more and more elevated in terms of accuracy, outcomes, and so on. So I think till the time that objective is there, it all depends on which job gets done better by human, which job gets done better by an agent, and then you define the workflow to bring the output to the best possible format. Now, in some processes, the outflow will be more human driven. In some processes, it will be more agentic driven. But that's how you typically look at it. And in that perspective, if employees have to get reskilled, like even the example we were talking about, a manager today having a kind of skills in which they have to manage people will be very different from when you guys become managers or leaders tomorrow to actually manage a set of agents. So over there,
Right.
exception handling, ethical elements, and all that will become even more important than actually checking whether the process is being followed properly or not, because agent will follow the process properly. So that's where the fundamental shift towards skilling and reskilling comes into the mix when you're thinking about these things.
I think the future does sound very
So it's
interesting
going
and
to be
scary at the
very
same time.
interesting for all of you. I mean, it's exciting to say the
So,
least.
like moving on from AI transformations, since you have worked quite a lot at change management as well, at the center of it is leadership essentially, and you have led changes at a lot of huge scale corporations as well. So, what's the most rigid mindset shift that senior leaders struggle with when they are working with AI or with any kind of change management?
So, see, in a lot of organizations, leaders feel that they have been very successful. I was
Uh,
just talking to a fellow panelist down there,
hmm.
and we were just speaking about the fact that leaders really feel that, hey, I've taken the company to this far, so I know what to do. So, there's complacency that comes in with a very good historical reason behind it that, hey, I know what to do, I know how to handle this, I can take it to the next level as well. But what leaders do not realize sometimes is that they themselves need to change very quickly in order to adopt in the dynamic world which is there today. So, one, changing the own mindset and bringing in that agility within the leaders is very important. And the second thing is, it's also important to understand that if you truly need to drive a change within an organization, leaders need to really walk the talk.
Yeah.
And driving that change, whenever transformation is going on, it's extremely important to have the business leaders visibly doing it
Hmm.
rather than something in which you feel that, okay, there's a project team which is executing and we'll take care of it. So I think there are a lot of good and bad examples of leaders making or breaking the change program which we have encountered in our lives. But more or less, any leader who's true to bring in the right change, they come on board and they really make a big difference, because leaders have to really drive things from the top for employees to actually understand.
I think it just circles back to a point that you earlier mentioned, that they have to lead from the front,
They need
setting
to
an
lead from the
example.
front. And what's changing over the years is, in earlier days that was enough,
Yeah.
but today there's like a lot of influence within informal networks, there's a lot of
Yeah.
influence within the middle management. So how do you bring all of it together and get everybody to work on a shared vision? All those things become core leadership skills for any good leader today versus maybe optional few years back.
So moving on to the same change management topic that we are discussing. I was really curious about how do you measure whether a change initiative has truly been internalized by the entire corporation and its workforce, or it's just implemented at the surface level?
So it depends on initiative to initiative. Change management often comes on the back of a larger objective,
Hmm.
like it's an M&A or it's a technology implementation or it's a restructuring. And that initiative or that context behind the transformation is tied back to some sort of a value case or a business need. So eventually, change management KPIs to measure it have to be tied back to what was the original business case. Now, if I take a very simplistic example of implementing maybe an ERP system across, say, a manufacturing location, you know for sure that the system is going to help you right from creating purchase requests, to actually clearing invoices, to actually going ahead and doing maintenance of your equipment and so on. Now you are doing that manually. Today you are doing it via the system. So you can measure how much of it is before, how much of it is after. Second thing, if say you are implementing it with an efficiency perspective in mind, that now with an automated invoice receiver, I can process 50 invoices in a day versus maybe 10 earlier, it gets measured. Then there's human behaviors in which then you identify, okay, the human behavior I want is that my system is giving me now these sophisticated reports. I want to take decision making on those reports and how many decisions you did. Or say in the marketing system, how you get data with respect to your leads, how you get data with respect to recommendations about which customers to pitch on and how much did you grow using them. So that's where basis the real objectives with which we undergo a transformation. You tie the change management KPIs to those behaviors, which will make that success happen, and then measure it.
I think I would now like to tie up the both topics that we discussed, that is AI transformation and change management.
Correct.
That is, since you mentioned that it is changing every day, as you mentioned. So, which part of I would say traditional change management becomes completely obsolete in the next 5 years, and what would be the new aspect that would replace it?
So see, we are already using a lot of AI in change management, like the measurement part you were talking
Yeah.
about. We have very sophisticated AI tools which can measure how far the change has progressed, which is the group which has moved ahead in terms of accepting the change versus which other groups we are still lagging behind. So all those possibilities are already in motion. Now, when we talk about traditional change management, you want to understand what is change management. It's about shift in the mindset. It's about shift in the behaviors. It's in the shift about ways of working. The objectives still remain the same. How you reach that objectives change. Like a simple exercise that we do is called as a change impact analysis. Like in a very simple term, it's like you understand what impact the change is going to bring on each of the user groups and then work towards making it possible. Now with the incoming AI technologies and tools that we have, you don't really need to get into a mode of talking, analyzing what impact everybody's getting. So it shifts from being a very volume intensive exercise, something in which AI can already predict to a 75-80% that say if you are implementing a new Salesforce system in an FMCG company, what are the typical impacts it's gonna do with respect to what you were doing earlier.
Yeah.
And then you build onto it and move forward. So I think more than thinking about if anything becomes obsolete or anything becomes different, I think it's again coming back to the same point that you got to think about the possibilities of how to do things in the best possible manner with humans and AI getting augmented together.
So it's not like ideology is getting obsolete, it's just getting quicker with the
No,
advent of
AI is never about doing that. It's about basically helping you, or in some cases, getting better than you
Betting.
in doing things.
Surely, sir. And looking ahead, clearly this demands like a different kind of leader, as you said earlier, that is placing people at the core, which is leading by example. So, what skills do you think will define effective change leaders in an AI first world that is upcoming?
Adaptability, by far the most important skill for anybody today. The ability to skill yourself, reskill yourself, the ability to learn, the ability to unlearn quickly, because the world is moving at a very fast pace. So building that muscle of actually adopting to different scenarios, very important. Decision making through the usage of AI, it's extremely important. Few years back, it was decision making on the basis of data.
Yeah.
Today, you have to know how to use AI to help you take the right decisions, because intelligence is at the doorstep. You just need to know how to use it, which basically ties back to being AI fluent in the thing. And the third is, as AI is getting more and more plugged into our day-to-day work, the human side of work is getting more and more important. Relationships, critical thinking, empathy, those kind of aspects become more and more important, because those are the things AI cannot do. So being a leader which is truly human in an AI world is going to be a differentiated edge when you actually get into the business world tomorrow.
I think now when you talked about the different human values that will help us proceed ahead. So again, just a additional question to that, that how should the upcoming MBA students from our generation should prepare for leadership roles like those in the future that you just mentioned?
I think one thing is you should experiment with yourself more. You've got to build that kind of a adaptability muscle.
Oh.
It's almost like you go to the gym, you build a muscle. Now, what you do with that muscle, it's secondary. But you got to have that kind of an adaptability muscle with yourself, so that tomorrow, if you come across unprecedented situations, or situations which need you to be dynamic, you have that capacity. So experiment with little things, experiment by challenging yourself to undergo behaviors which you might not have done before. Think about how you can be comfortable of living in an uncomfortable zone, or you can be comfortable with the discomfort. Your topic of the panel discussion was when the music okay. So the kind of leaders you want to be tomorrow is the ones who can really compose that music in real time when you are there in an organization which needs to be in a synchrony together. So that's how it is, that you cannot rely on a music being played with a playlist. You can rely on somebody else creating it. It's like with the tools at your disposal, you got to be at that point wherein you can compose the music in real time and then let the organization also enjoy it in synchrony with an orchestra, which you yourself have to then orchestrate. Now, the linkage to orchestration of agents is coincidental here, but you get where I'm going with this.
That was indeed a good pun, and surely the MBAs of our generation will become great music composers, as you just
Absolutely.
said. And finally, just wrapping it up, that if you had to leave leaders with just one thought, what's one piece of advice for navigating a continuous disruption model that they would want to follow in such a changing world?
I think if one piece of advice around following a continuous disrupting model is to not consider it as disruptive at all. Like I said, it's the new normal now, that things will continue to be dynamic. If we let it run in our minds that, hey, this is a disruption, how do I respond to the disruption? You'll always be reacting to the situation. You'll never be responding to it. But if as leaders, we are able to recognize the fact that there'll be headwinds coming from different directions, there'll be changes which will be coming in, then the disruptions will not really look like disruptions every time. They'll be look like probably new opportunities coming your way or new challenges coming your way, and you will be in a better position to respond to them proactively rather than simply reacting to them. And I think that's where it has to be fundamentally thought through by leaders in a way that disruption is something which is very, very normal these days, very, very rapid these days, and it's going to happen more and more frequently than we have ever seen in the past.
Surely. I think we can wrap this up now.
Sure.
It was really insightful, and thank you for the detailed look into the changing AI world and of the change management. We would like to thank you again for
thank you
joining
for
us at
having
this
me.
podcast.
It's a pleasure here, and very interesting conversations you drove. So that was a really good and interesting session for me.
Surely, sir. Thank you.
Thank
you
you
very much.
Bye-bye.